been exploring some of the diseases of the soul. And just a reminder that these sessions are really designed so that one becomes aware of perhaps some of the conditioning, specifically the beliefs, the habitual tendencies that I may be acting on without even knowing that that's where I'm coming from. And so it's really about awareness, looking at myself, seeing what are the blockages, and just touching base with my inner world. And so today we're going to look at, Danielle, if you could make me co-host so I could share my screen, that would be great. We're going to look at another kind of dis-ease of the soul, and I'm going to share my screen. And so what we're looking at this morning is the disease of incontinence. And I remember the first time I came across this word, and I didn't know it even existed, was in a workshop that Mike was doing. It was based on his book, and he was in South Africa. I think he was doing a tour of South Africa. And we used it as an opportunity to launching his book kind of a thing. And he brought in this aspect, incontinence. I hope I pronounced it right. But for those of you who might not be familiar with it, as I wasn't, it's really the inability of the body to control certain bodily functions. And in this case, specifically related to urinating and bowel movements. So there's no control in that way. And so the catchphrase that Mike uses in his book is wait till I tell them. And it's this feeling, such souls who have this dis-ease of the soul, this affliction of the soul, will always feel a need, a deep, deep need to tell people everything, to share and to talk a lot. I guess if we had to bring it down to what is the primary symptom, it's about non-stop thinking and talking. So, you know, layman's terms, one would talk about verbal diarrhea, and that's just talking, where an individual just talks a lot. And I don't know if you've had the experience, but listening to someone who talks constantly can be quite exhausting as well. So it's always useful to see, am I holding that kind of behavior where I just talk incessantly? And a sign that one that talks a lot, it means that one is thinking a lot too. And when I'm overthinking, then I can never be at peace. I can never feel content. I can never feel at ease. But the results of that is mental fatigue. I feel stressed. I feel anxious. There's a lot of worry, because my mind is just continuing, you know, at like a record speed, racing kind of a speed. So just we will look at some of the other symptoms as well. And so this is the important part. I think the viral belief behind this is a deep subconscious belief that I need to be affirmed by others. And so it's almost like my talking is to try and get others to validate me, to say something good about me, to reaffirm something. And so the incontinent consciousness will usually be in a state of expansion and speculation about many things. And so, you know, we make big stories in our minds. So something happened, but by the time we explain and expand on it, from being tiny, like a mustard seed, which is quite tiny, it becomes something of a mountain. And so because within the mind, there's a lot of thinking, then automatically it creates an expansiveness within the self. And the need that emerges is because there's so much happening in the mind. There has to be some release. And so the release is we talk a lot. And you'll find such individuals will be very outwardly focused. So worrying, taking in a lot of things from the outside, whatever they see, they'll create a story. There'll be lots of misunderstanding sometimes. There isn't clarity in the communication. And all of these are signs of overthinking, which Mike would say is the dis-ease of incontinence. The inability to create, to control my thinking patterns and the number of thoughts I'm creating, the quality of my thoughts, and obviously the output of that in terms of speaking or acting from that space. And at the core of it, such souls are motivated by three forms of neediness. One is the need to be the center of attention. And I was reflecting a little bit about this because at first glance, one would say, no, I don't want to be at the center of attention. Because usually the one that is at the center of attention is loud and boisterous and makes a big song and dance about things. But even one who might isolate themselves, prefer to be alone and not comfortable in a gathering, it's also on some subtle level a form of seeking attention. So let's say I'm in a gathering somewhere and it's a social function, and I choose to sort of isolate myself for whatever reason, and I keep away from people. I don't converse. In a way, I'm playing low. I'm playing like the victim, and in a subtle way, I'm trying to seek people's attention. So it's not always the loud and the boisterous kind of energy, but it could be the quiet victim mentality. Poor me, see what I need, I'm all by myself. So this is kind of some of the subtleties that might emerge from this form of neediness. And then the second form is that they need to be recognized, validated, and valued as one who is in the know. So they know a lot about everything, they can talk and talk about various subjects. And why they have the tendency to do this sometime is because there's this belief that the more I know, the more self-respect I hold. But remember, knowing and being is two different things. Having lots of information about something might help to create understanding and make sense of things. But if I'm not applying what it is that I'm working on or reading or taking in, there's no power behind that. And so I come across as one who might know a lot, and such souls, because the ego is very strong and dominant, they would want to always come across as, I know, listen to me. So even if you're sharing a story about your own experience or where you are, they will override and try and come with something better. And that comes because they're insecure within themselves. And so this need to be recognized, to be validated and valued. So they seek others' attention again through what I know and how I express myself and the intelligence that I believe I hold. But in spirituality, I'm not going to say none of that, but those are not the key elements. The key elements is really how connected am I to self, and how much in my pure self-respect can I remain. And we look at that in the next slide as well. So again, just to check for yourself, do I sometimes feel the need to have validation, to have reaffirmation, for someone even just to tell me, you're so good, you did a good job. So I might have done it, and that's great, because I do seek to do my best, because it's an aspect of my integrity and my self-respect. The key is that I don't hold any expectations from others based on what I do. And if someone does say, great, wonderful, it was a great job, I acknowledge it, but I don't let it go to my head, because then the ego becomes big again. So it's like appreciating, but not latching onto it, not taking my sense of self, my validation from what others say, but rather from the recognition of who I am and what I hold within myself. And when I'm clear about why I do things, it's easy for that to remain in place. And then the third form of neediness is that because there's so much thinking inside, there's a need to release and relieve themselves of the mental pressure. And so sometimes they seek escapism, whether it's in nature, whether it's in entertainment, whether it's in alcohol, or all these sometimes habitual behaviors that we adopt as a way to release for that moment. We know that that's a temporary valve that allows some release, but it doesn't quite address the underlying issues, which in this case is the belief that I need to be affirmed by others. So we're looking at the beliefs and what's the symptom. So how do I then begin to free myself from this kind of dis-ease within the consciousness, within the soul? And again, there's just a few simple truths to practice, to hold, and then to be in everything that I do. And the first one is that the realization that in the busyness with other people's business, I am missing my own life. One of the things that I find that if I'm so busy looking at others, what tends to happen, I'm always seeing what they have and what I don't have. So that even if there's wonderful things happening in my life, good things happening in my life, because I'm so outwardly focused, I don't appreciate and I don't even see what's there. And so I'm always comparing and in some way competing, trying to be better, trying to be bigger. And so I create more stories, and it just then perpetuates that dis-ease of incontinence. But when I realize that I'm wasting so much of my precious energy, my thought energy, my sense of well-being, because I'm so busy in other people's business, that I don't recognize, have gratitude for my own life. And so, it's about bringing it back to self. And as Raksha was talking today, the whole aspect of gratitude. So I bring it inwards again. And then the second aspect that can free me is giving of the self, free of wanting anything in return. All neediness dissolves in this. I think yesterday in one of the sessions I was doing, something about abundance came into play. And I feel this aspect of giving of the self is not that I think I'm giving, because that in itself is very limited. And to some extent, it's rooted in my ego and I might expect something. I'm not saying in all cases, but there is a chance of that happening. But when I am full and when I am abundant internally, then automatically I would share that. I would give that. Think of a bucket that's being filled with water. Once the water hits the brim, and if the tap is still running, it just automatically overflows. The container remains full, but it's overflowing. And so whatever is in the surroundings will receive that water as well. And so in a similar way, this idea of giving of the self is that I feel so full internally that I overflow, and in my overflowing, I can support and give the purity of who I am without thinking I'm giving. And so there's no burden of or responsibility of heaviness. I have to give, I have to do this. I just am. And that brings us to the third realization, that love is what I am. And this is what frees one from neediness. It brings one to realize that what I previously believed I needed, I don't need that, because my sense of neediness comes from the lack of awareness of what I am and what I hold in terms of the qualities that I have as a soul. And so when I come to this realization that love is what I am, not even love is what I have, because the nature of the soul is love, then what I am is what I give off freely without wanting anything in return, because I don't need anything. If I am love, everything that I need, I already hold. And so it's this deep, deep awareness that everything that I need for myself in terms of how I live my life, the quality of my experiences, the relationships, I already hold the blueprint within my consciousness. And the key is then about how do I then tap into that and allow it to come to the surface so that it becomes my natural expression. It becomes the way I live my life in a very organic way. And so then there's no struggle, then there's no difficulty, there's no fight, there's no heaviness, but there's just a beautiful unfolding of my own energy. But it does relate directly to awareness of the fullness of my being. And so let's go into, maybe before we go into our reflection for the day, I'm going to pause there and see if there's any questions or comments or any thoughts that you might have. So I'll invite you to unmute, or you can also put it in the chat. Okay, doesn't seem like there's anything. Maybe it will come up later. So let's move on to the reflections that we can hold for today, the awareness. And so just check for yourself on a scale of 1 to 100. 1 is low, 100 is high. Where would you rate your level of incontinence? And remember, this is for your own sake. No one's going to see it. No one's going to judge you. It's really about being honest with the self, to acknowledge and recognize where you are at, so that you can make the necessary adjustments to come out of that dis-ease that you might be aware of or might not be aware of, but now you can be aware of. So just take a moment and sort of rate yourself. Oops. I think something happened there. Let's put my okay, I'm going to share my screen again. I don't know if you can see anything. I can't see on my side for some reason. Okay, that's better. Okay, so hopefully you could gauge, and you might not have a number, but it gives you an idea. Are you on the lower end of the scale or the higher end of the scale? And like I said, it's not about judgment. It's just about a snapshot of where I am at. And then the next part is, what exactly do you think is the underlying belief that results in your incontinence? What are you seeking? And so what is it that I'm seeking from others, from my relationships, that's creating those symptoms that we spoke about earlier? You know, and it could be, I seek validation. I want to be acknowledged. I want to be appreciated. I want to be seen in a certain way, whatever it is for you. Each one's different. So what's the underlying belief for yourself? You know, sometimes it's not always easy to identify, but I find for myself, you know, whenever in my relationships, especially, or even in situations, um, I just check myself that when I feel disrespected, um, feel a little upset or fearful, then usually there's something that I want and it's not being met. And so maybe now you might not be able to identify it, but you know, throughout the day, just see if you can identify those moments when there's discomfort inside in your feelings or even your thinking, where you start thinking too much. Just stop for a moment and say, what am I expecting? What am I seeking out of this situation, out of this individual, out of what's happening in the drama of life? I see Vira's asked a question. Why do we seek validation and be recognized? I struggle with this. You know, one of the things, and it comes back to awareness. One of the things that we've forgotten is who we are. And our sense of identity has become very much based on the external attributes of the body and all the beliefs and attachment to those attributes. So for example, on a most physical level, you know, I'm either male or female. And with that comes a whole lot of conditioning and belief systems. So if I identify with my sense of self and really the identity that I am female, and that's deeply ingrained and rooted into my subconscious, and I live my life in that awareness, then what happens is I have a box and I put myself in that box, and within that box are a variety of labels, of behavioral patterns, of how one thinks if you're a female, all the conditioning. So, you know, women must be seen and not heard. Women can only do certain things. Women are the weaker sex. Such jobs are, so there's a whole lot of things that are associated with that. I'm just using a very basic example. It applies to age, race, gender, culture, many attributes related to the body. But what happens, all of these are always in a state of flux, are always changing. And so because I don't have something eternal and something real that I'm anchored to, when all of these external attributes, conditionings are shifting and changing, which is inevitable because it's the law of matter, it's the law of entropy, then I also fluctuate with that. And so because I'm being influenced by certain beliefs and conditioning, I become confused about who I am. And sometimes there's this internal conflict because I think internally we know that we're more than the body and we can't quite put our finger on it. And so when something comes that's body conscious and I hold soul consciousness, there is this little bit of friction that might emerge. And then it creates thoughts of, am I this or am I that? Should I be like this? But I know there's something deeper. And so we become confused. And then in order to create some kind of clarity, we seek others to reaffirm or validate something for ourselves. So in essence, really, it's that we struggle with feeling our own sense of self-worth based on the awareness and the truth and the eternal identity that I am a soul and I am peace, love, purity, power, and bliss. if I align myself to these and I really go into the depth of exploring it for myself and experiencing it within myself, I will seek less validation from others. And so because I become, my sense of validation, my sense of self-respect stems from who I am, not on anything external. So it is a practice on deepening that awareness and making soul consciousness a reality in everything that I do. I hope that helps, Vera. And it's day by day, you know, step by step. And so some of these practices and meditation does support that process. If there's anyone else, please do feel free to share. Okay, if not, let's move on then. So hopefully you were able to identify some underlying belief that you might find for yourself. And Vera's just saying, I forget I am enough. And that's exactly it. Yes, I am enough. And I often think that if I can hold the vision that God has of me, because he has the most elevated, the highest vision of me, and God is truth. He cannot see something that is not true. He cannot hold something that is not true because it goes against his nature. When I can see through the eyes of God, when I can see how God sees me, then I won't seek anything from another human being. And there's such freedom and liberation in that. So it is just remembering. So yes, we have the tendency to forget all the time. And so it's about remembering. So maybe today we can use the day as maintaining gratitude and holding that awareness and remembering, and then consciously practice being quietly content in all your conversations this week. If a week is too long, even if it's just for today, just observe yourself. Do you feel a neediness to engage in conversations that doesn't hold value, is not going to add value to anything? I'm just maybe want to hear my own voice sometimes, or I just want to fill the space of silence sometimes. So just check yourself. In my conversations, in my actions, can I speak only that which I need to speak? And just see my thinking, and is there any resistance that might come up? Okay, so I'll just see, is there anything else from anyone? If not, then we can move into our meditation for this morning. Okay, so happy practice. Let's go into our meditation now. So in this moment, I bring in full awareness of the fullness of my being. I remember that I am this beautiful, pure, conscious light energy that knows truth, that holds truth. And my deepest desire is to experience and be this truth of who I am. For I know that within this lies my freedom. Within this lies my well-being. And it's this that will ignite that quiet joy internally, where I'm free from overthinking, overanalyzing, generating a myriad of stories in my mind and sharing that. Instead, I find myself coming to that place of quiet stillness, a stillness that holds abundance, a stillness that is very natural to be in, a stillness that creates a deep sense of security. Because in this stillness, I know who I am. I am deeply anchored in the awareness, the knowledge, but most importantly, the experience of my pure self as unlimited energy. And so I create a mental image in my mind of being this radiant star-like being that only holds and reflects beauty. I have everything I need. I feel full in that awareness. And as a result, there's no need to take from another. I am free. I am light. I am happy. So as I move through my day-to-day, let me take these energies and keep reminding myself that I am enough and I have an abundance within. Naturally, let me express that in all my interactions. Om Shanti. So thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful day. Just a reminder that this evening we have a wonderful talk with Sister Aruna Ladva. She's from Kuwait, over 38 years of experiencing and practice of meditation. And so the topic she's going to explore is developing healthy self-respect, which I guess is very much in alignment with what we've been talking about. And so that's at 7 p.m. this evening. And then on Sunday, there's a lovely opportunity to come together and share our pure positive thoughts to the world collectively, with the aim of creating that world of peace and harmony. So do join us if you are available. Have a lovely, lovely day and take care. And we will connect again tomorrow. Om Shanti and goodbye.